All right, good morning. It's November 6th at 9 a.m. If you would, please rise and join with me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning. Commissioner Boyce, do you have a report?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I do. I really appreciate, too, the board has been very open and supportive of this bi-monthly report. Line of duty deaths, police officers went up 1 to 101 for the year of 2019. Fallen heroes, military deaths, you were right, did go up 1. I somehow missed that, but the Brookings report, thank you. 32. Line of duty deaths for firefighters, we are up from 46 to 48. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And just so you know, anyone in the county that doesn't know, we had our signs at the south end of the county vandalized about 5 or 6 months ago. The veterans, we appreciate veterans sign underneath the Welcome to Oregon. So the road department replaced those signs, and we have now put signs up that say, we honor veterans and first responders. So we just wanted to let everyone in the county know that we are also recognizing our first responders as well.
Very good.
All right, so do I have any amendments to the agenda?
I have several.
Commissioner Gold?
Well, let Julie go first. Maybe she's going to cover what I have.
Sure. So I wanted to add 6E, which is an appointment to the Harbor Water. That was in our supplemental packet. And then I also wanted to move 7C, which is to appoint the interim local public health administrator, to 11, so it will go under higher orders. I wanted to add executive session 192.660 to A.
Hold on one second,
Sure.
Mr. Melzer.
She went a little fast.
So we're going 7C to 11
Right.
under the higher orders.
Correct.
Okay, and I'm sorry, go ahead.
And then add executive session 192.660, parent 2, parent small a parent, to discuss the employment of an individual or agent. And I believe council will have something to add under there too.
If you're ready, yes.
Yes.
And then the other one real quick is just since the sheriff is here to move 7D courthouse security staffing, right after the first item under discussion action items. Since he's here, then he doesn't...
Moving from 7D to 7A?
Correct.
Okay.
That way he doesn't have to wait around.
I have no...
Two additional executive session, the 192.660-2F is information exempt from disclosure, attorney-client, and then H, litigation likely to be filed. A couple of matters to talk about there.
All right, anyone else?
None here, Mr. Chair.
Hearing none, do I have a motion, please?
I move that we approve the agenda as amended.
So moved, Mr. Chair. Second, I'm sorry.
Any further discussion? Roll, please.
Commissioner Gold.
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce.
Aye.
Chair Pash.
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
All right, it seems I have no public comment forms. We are skipping public comment this morning. It is closed. Presentations. Sheriff Ward, we have a presentation for DJ Storn's Years of Service Award.
Good morning. And just for the record, you see me with a beard, well, start of a beard. We're doing a No Shave November here at the Curry County Sheriff's Office. My deputies had asked me if I would allow them to grow a beard. And well, normally we don't for an image that we like to portray. But I agreed to do so on a couple accounts of that. They each, the ones that want to join in, they'll pay $50 to do so. The beard has to be gone by the 1st of December. And then the $50 that we collect from each person, including myself, will go to a local children's charity or to families that are having hardships during the Christmas time with families and kids and And so we'll give them the cash or gift certificates to go help buy gifts for them. So, with that being said,
Commissioner Gold?
Where does the money go to? To you, or?
it goes to Deputy Joan Allen. She's keeping track of it, who gives what, and then at the end I'll kind of give it a press release or a social media thing with some photos of our beards. We've got a lot of comments about wanting to have photos of those.
So if there's anyone in the county that wants to submit to that, they would make the check out to the Curry County Sheriff's Department?
Well, actually, I don't really want to write the check out to Curry County Sheriff's Office because it's not a budgeted thing. I like
Right.
to just take cash.
Okay.
And we'll, Joan's going to take accountability of it, and then we'll just divide that up and give it out to people that we find that need help.
Okay, great.
We're here today to recognize DJ Storms for her 5 years of service to Curry County and to the Curry County Sheriff's Office and the community. I have known DJ since she was a little girl. Her family lived about a mile from us when we lived out in Cedar Valley. And I'll always remember going home in the middle of the night in a patrol car at the end of my shift, coming around the corner near their house and see a present of some sort in the middle of the road. And you can only imagine what's in those little presents. With her and boys, they're brothers. But it was something I just got a kick out of. DJ started her career at the Curry County Sheriff's Office as a 911 dispatcher about the same time that I was appointed sheriff. DJ was my first hire as a sheriff, and is one of the best things that I actually ever did in my hiring process. DJ attended the basic telecommunications class number 92, and upon her graduation, above all others, received the prestigious Victor G. Attia Award. This award states, who by personal example during their academy tenure earned the professional respect of staff, students, and instructors through group leadership, motivation, and encouragement, distinguished academic achievement, a commitment to wellness, an exemplary personal appearance, and an outstanding demeanor. We are very proud of her, so to speak. It was not a shock to me that DJ would excel and become one of the best 911 dispatchers we've had. The value I saw in DJ, I promoted her to executive administrative assistant, and she is a pivotal part of my administration. DJ makes sure that the office runs smoothly by taking care of the rest of our employees, making sure all the bills are paid, making sure the contracts are up to date, billings out on time, required equipment ordered, and keeping me in line. I honestly do not know what we would do without her. DJ is a dedicated employee, devoted wife to her husband Justin, and together they have raised 3 great young boys. DJ is a gift to Curry County, and we are very honored and proud to have her part of our team. So DJ, I'd like to present this 5-year service award,
Thank you.
and along with your pin for the 5 years.
Thank you. Handshake.
And I'd like for you to say anything you'd like to make a speech. Keep it at about 10 minutes if you could.
It'll be way under that. First of all, thank you, because that was very nice, very humbling. I will say this. I was born and raised here in Curry County, and 5 years ago I made a decision to leave the medical field, take a pay cut, leave the medical field, and come apply at Curry County to the Sheriff's Office. And the reason I say that is because when I applied, I was asked, obviously, why I would do that and why I'd like to come to work for the Sheriff's Office. And in addition to wanting to serve and give back to my community that had shown up for me so many times over the years, was to be a part of the team of the Curry County Sheriff's Office. We have a Sheriff's Office that is second to none, and I'm just one member of a very exceptional team over there. And that team starts with our sheriff, and I think that the public, most of them I think know that, but some don't, and
it starts with him and every other member of his command staff and every other deputy we have over there. It wouldn't be the same without each and every one of us. So with that said, I would like to thank Sheriff Ward for the opportunity he gave me 5 years ago and took a chance on somebody with no experience over there. Because there hasn't been a day that's went by that I haven't regretted the change that I made. And there's been some tough days over there. So with that, thank you, and thank you to Curry County as well.
Thank you. Commissioner Boyce, go ahead.
DJ, the Victor G. Attia that the sheriff mentioned
Yes.
was the governor of Oregon, 1980 through
Mhm.
1988, and he was a wonderful friend for
Yep.
Curry County. So
Thank you.
that's even better. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'd like to say also the sheriff's department in this community has something up on a lot of sheriff's departments nationwide. A lot of the people that work in the sheriff's department in this county were born and raised here. And you all know each other since, like you just said, you've known her since she was a little girl. And it's nice to have that trust and knowledge of each person, like a family, you know, and you're going to put your lives on the line next to each other. You know each other so well that you know what you can expect and what you won't, you know, what you won't tolerate from each other. And it's just nice to have that closeness and that camaraderie in the sheriff's department here, that you are all so close to each other that it's, like I said, it's like a close-knit family. So
Thank you.
it's wonderful. Thank you.
And I can't believe you gave up my secret.
I want to know what some of the gifts were, but that's okay. That's at a later
I
date.
do recall that one ended up on the sheriff's desk at one point. It was not him. He was not the sheriff at the time. And what do you do in a remote rural county and you live, 8-10 miles out of town?
Right.
You got a bunch of horses out.
Yeah, you have to make your own fun, right?
There you go. Right.
Wasn't
Thanks, guys.
It wasn't illegal. Thank you.
All right, next we have personal action form presentation to the board. Julie Swift, Human Resources and Payroll Coordinator.
Good morning. Since July, and this is a little bit late, it's not within the 60 days, the Sheriff's Office has hired 6 new deputies. Between July and the time that I submitted the agenda item, there's been a couple more that have come on board since then. 4 are corrections deputies, 2 are communications deputies, and I believe with the most recent hire, the jail and dispatcher are both completely fully staffed.
Okay.
The sheriff is still looking for a couple more road deputies, but as far as the other 2 disciplines, they are fully staffed.
Thank you.
Good.
All right, next we're going to move on to the consent agenda. Being A, approved minutes for the business meeting for October 16, 2019. B, to approve job description, accounting clerk, accounts payable. C, appoint 1 member to the Port Orford Cemetery Maintenance District Board. D, approved Dwyer Partnership Task Order number 14A to provide engineering services for Gardner Ridge Road Slide Repair project with signature authority to the roadmaster. And E, to appoint the Harbor Water board member.
Yeah, it's a board member.
Do I have a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
I'll second.
Further discussion?
I just have a comment. When it comes to the Port Orford Cemetery Maintenance District, we've been trying for quite a while to find members for that board. With this appointment, they still will not have a quorum, and we will continue to advertise, but my recommendation is if we do not have enough people to at least hold a quorum there, by the end of the year, we begin the process to dissolve the district.
Well, actually, I'd like to bring up to the board, it's a good time to do it. We are having a meeting in the next couple of weeks to look at it. A group of citizens have actually asked to look at all the districts in the county and just talk about them and bring to this board suggestions for this board and the possibility of some consolidation, some dissolution, and some other ways to approach some of the special district issues that we face. So with the board's latitude on that, I will proceed, and hopefully by the second week of December have some recommendations to the board on what we do.
While we're on the topic, I'll just mention too, a couple of meetings ago, the board directed me to schedule a workshop or an open house type presentation with the public to educate everyone about special districts, and we do have that scheduled. We are having somebody from the Department of Revenue come down as one of our speakers. And I was going to announce it under Director's Report, but I'll just add it right now. That is to be held December 9th.
Okay.
So do we need, if I may, Mr. Chair, do we need a consensus on that, just to make sure that it's official that apparently we're combining these two efforts? Is that what I'm hearing?
I don't think we're combining the efforts, no.
Okay.
No, this
No,
is something that the board asked them to do. I'm doing what I'm doing on a voluntary thing because I promised the public that I will continue to pursue some of the special districts in this county. And then whatever I come up with, I will bring back to this board.
Okay, and that doesn't need to be an action item?
No.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so now we're moving on to discussion items, and we're going to move,
No roll.
Did we need to approve the
oh,
consent
I'm
agenda?
sorry, okay. Go ahead, I have,
Commissioner Gold,
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce,
Yes,
Chair Pash.
aye,
Consent
So we
agenda
made-
approved
we
unanimously.
did make the motion.
yes, we
Yeah.
had already made the motion in second, yes. Discussion action items, we're gonna move, D up, so, courthouse security staffing, Ms. Schmelzer?
Yes, at our workshop regarding courthouse security, one of the items discussed was the idea of staffing the courthouse and for security measures, and the board directed us to bring that back, directed me to bring that back on this agenda. The board had also requested that the sheriff look into alternatives and expenses, what that would cost to actually staff the courthouse for security purposes. So the sheriff is here to just share what he found on that.
They're a little hard to read. I didn't bring my glasses, so I might have to borrow Chris's.
Thank you.
They're perfect.
John, do you need them? Or are we old?
Can you see?
I got long arms. I'm good, thanks.
Okay, Sheriff Ward from the Curry County Sheriff's Office. You guys had asked me to look into what it would cost to staff the court security metal detector. And we talked about 40 hours a week during a work week, Monday through Friday. I asked Julie to look at what it would cost with all the roll-ups and things like that for, in my opinion, it has to be somebody that you pay for. I know that, we have some wonderful volunteers in our county, but, in order to make sure that we have somebody there at all times, you need to kind of put them on the hook and pay them for what they do. So in order to do that, there's two or three ways to do it. If we hired a corrections deputy to do that, we'd have to hire them at the beginning wage salary. And then, we looked at a 3-year cost of living increases and everything. So if you look at if you look at the sheet that I handed out and where it says year 1 corrections deputy, with all the roll-ups and the startup of them, it would be $73,000 to staff that 5 days a week, 40 hours. And then year 2, it would move up to $77,000, and year 3, $82,000. Now that's just the salary. We want to make sure that we equip them as well, and with a vest, duty weapon, uniforms, and duty gear. So that's about an additional $1,800 per person if you want to just hire one person. Now, if you hired a non-certified person, and with all the roll-ups, it's pretty much, the first year is only about $3,000 difference. So my suggestion is to hire 2 part-time people with no certifications, but we train them to do the job of sitting there, and they'd always have the backup from us for court security, and even the Gold Beach PD if they're around to help out with any issues that come up. But hiring 2 people part-time, it's basically half the cost and about $45,000. You still have to pay for the equipment and everything, like say the vest and the duty weapons and uniforms. But I don't mind hiring those under the sheriff's office so we could keep track. If it's going to be court security, I'd want them underneath us. So not only for them, but we would also continue with our court security. They would just be there to man the metal detectors, and if any issues came up, that we would send somebody over to help. So that's what I have. Julie, you have anything else to want to add to that, or?
Commissioner Gold?
I just have a question. What do other counties do? Do you have any idea? Do they usually hire part-time, I could call them trained by the sheriff's department, but they're not actual sheriffs to do this?
No, I haven't, honest with you, I haven't looked into that. I know Julie and I had discussed that a little bit, with what Josephine County does. But, every county is going to be different. And
I've heard that some counties hire a security company to come in and do it. Some counties use deputies along with reserve deputies to do it. So that's the two I've heard of. Commissioner Boyce, did you have something?
Yeah, thank you. You wouldn't have to explain in detail today. I'm just really interested in the training for the part-time people. And I think, I got some confidence that you'd put well-qualified people there. And so that's up to you if you want to give detail today, but it's just out there that I think we need to be aware of.
Well, it's not as extensive of a training as you would if you hired a corrections deputy and sent them to the academy for 5 weeks and then a field training for another 4 or 5 weeks. It wouldn't be that extensive. If they're a private security type thing, they would have to go to the academy and get their security license. And there's 2 different types of security license that I understand. There's one that you can get without packing a weapon, or one you can get for packing a weapon. If we train them under ours, they would be constantly training with us as far as, qualifications and firearms and use of force. I don't think it would cost that much as far as training them, because there's not a lot of duties that they'd be responsible for other than to, the normal duties of finding stuff that come in through the front door. And if there's having an issue, they would call us and we would send a certified deputy over there to deal with it.
Good point on the security companies. But there's only one very small one in Brookings. No others in the county, I believe.
Yeah, I think that was night security.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They're at the port. Yeah.
That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
I have a question.
Ms. Melzer?
I have a question, and I'm not sure if Council Huddle can answer this, or perhaps you, Commissioner Pash, but so counties have to provide this court space for the state. Is there any way the state can help fund or pay for the security?
Well, we've talked to Mr. Langford about that, and I don't have final numbers on any of that, but he said not only can they help pay for what we want to do with the doors and the ramps and all that, but they can possibly contribute to this as well.
Okay.
Again, that's why he was here last week. He wanted direction on where the sheriff's department and we were going to go on the courthouse, and then he can go seek that funding.
Okay, so when we're considering this, I guess that's important to know, so
Yes.
the public doesn't think we're just hiring security guards now in the courtrooms.
Right.
We've looked in this before. For the last couple of years, we've talked about it, and I met with Thomas, the court security guy, and I do understand that they do have a pot of money for court security, but there was dedicated for certain things. I don't know if they would allow it for salaries, but that was a decision made by the presiding judge of the district. That it was his rule that it could only be used for certain things, but it doesn't mean that couldn't be changed according to Thomas if they presented it properly.
I do know he also said for the equipment and that, I do remember him saying that at that one meeting, that they can meet that a lot of that expense for all the equipment as well. So
Good. Okay.
thank you, Sheriff. So where do we want to go with this? Do we want to move forward?
Do you want to have more discussion, Mr. Chair, on the difference between the full-time, the two, or the part-time?
Well, I think the part-time speaks for itself. It's, like Sheriff said, it's about half. And you'll have two deputies, and they can both cover each other, and maybe during a busy time, and you've got a more high-profile trial in there, you can have both deputies there. And then I love the fact that we're a button push away from having the sheriff's department there in 15 seconds. So
Just a reminder of the Gold Beach PD.
right,
So,
and Gold Beach, yeah.
So you're wanting to look at the best possible option for the dollar there. So
Absolutely.
I'm certainly with you on that.
So am I.
So would we like to maybe prepare an order for the next meeting?
Yes, we can prepare an order and get together a job description, and we'll work with HR and the sheriff and bring something back.
Sheriff, we'll leave the decisions on this to your department because you're going to be the boss of it. But I would like to commend you and thank you for getting on this right away. I think it's imperative that we do this, and we'll get an order prepared for the next meeting.
Keep in mind that won't be certified deputies. It'll just
Right.
be people that we hire and we train to do that specific job.
I will know that when you set them there, they're ready.
They're ready.
I will have that confidence.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Give us just a little more detail on how we're proceeding here and what that means for the public. So
Well, for the
what's
public,
time frame? Or
we're going to prepare an order. We're going to ask Ms. Schmelzer to prepare an order for our next meeting to move forward with a job description and a wage and the wage thing that I think Julie Swift has already done.
Right.
And to hire 2 part-time deputies for courthouse security that will be managed through the sheriff's department.
Thank you. It's a great day.
Are we in all agreement on that?
I'm fine with that.
Just, and just one clarification too, we're looking at the salary that was recommended in this document, correct? When we
Correct.
write that job description? Okay.
Correct. Thank you, sir. All right, next on the discussion is Community Development Block Grant Application Priorities. Ms. Schmelzer?
Okay, the county can only have one community development block grant at a time. We've discussed that before. Currently, that grant is for the Head Start project. That is wrapping up. So we want to get in line and apply for another grant. They can fund pretty substantial projects. So I did send an email out to all department heads and elected officials asking for projects they felt could be eligible for that CDBG funding. And the 3 that I got back are attached. They were in the agenda routing slip. The one that I am recommending is pursuing the planning and design for a new county courthouse and jail. So the 3 that came forward was planning for a new courthouse and jail, Veterans Resource Center improvements down at the Resource Building. Those are pretty minor, so I don't know if that would be really worth all the effort and money spent on applying for a CDBG grant. And then the other one is the communication towers repairs and upgrades. That is an excellent project. However, the CDBG funds aren't going to be allowed to create a pool for eventual repairs and maintenance. So based on the ones that were submitted and based on past discussions, I would recommend that we apply for CDBG grant funds for the planning for a new courthouse and jail. And what would happen with that is I would reach out to CCD, which is our Regional Economic Development Authority, and work with them to help start applying for those funds to actually work on the feasibility study and design for that courthouse and jail. With that in mind, when we are eligible next summer to get on the list with the state for eventual assistance helping to rebuild a courthouse, we'll at least have some planning work done and some of the background work done in order to proceed with that application as well.
Is it imperative that we have the feasibility study done for the courthouse? I mean, I think we pretty much already know it. We need it.
Yeah, but what the feasibility study can do is look at locations, size, the need, things of that nature. That way, when we are ready to go forward with an actual construction grant, we'll know actually what what we need, how much we need, what the design would be, things of that nature.
'Cause I do know that AOC, when I spoke to AOC, and I know Commissioner Boyce did as well, about this early in the year, they had mentioned to us that they thought next February would be a good time to look into this again. We are on the list, and I think being proactive and getting some planning, some kind of courthouse plans drawn already, might be a great way to, like you said, when the state comes forward, we can hand them
We can be
already drawn
prepared.
plans and a feasibility study and say, here you are, we're ready to go.
Yeah.
Commissioner Gold?
I think all of that, the feasibility study, the plans and so forth, would definitely strengthen our position in gaining the ultimate grant. So
I agree.
I think this is the priority.
Commissioner Boyce?
Director Schmelzer, you mentioned, and I honestly I'd forgotten about this the last 2 months maybe, the towers. I mean, do we have to decide today what our priority would be? Because if I had to weigh in today, it would be for the towers. And obviously, I'm very glad to hear about, and as Commissioner Gold just said, the feasibility studies can't hurt. You're way ahead on that, and it does put us in a better position. But if we had to apply for something right now, my preference would be to dig into those towers, get back to the, money going back to the road fund reserves, because we just took, what was it, 1.3 or whatever to get that done.
Well, I think for the towers themselves, in our meetings with Day Wireless has said, yes, we're going to have to repair the towers, the actual towers, but for right now, they didn't see an immediate issue with the towers. And I understand the funding we've taken to replace the hardware on the towers, but the towers themselves, they didn't see an immediate issue. Is it in my short, fund to be able to replace those towers? Yes, it would be. But I think to move forward, we're going to be on the list in February for a new courthouse and hopefully a jail.
And a priority list.
And we've got basically a courthouse right now that's crumbling. This is, if we got the approval today, you're talking 3 to 5 years before we have a standing courthouse. So to get this on the front of the list. Again, I think it's everyone. We all have our different priorities. But mine would probably be to stay with the courthouse and the jail.
And the third one that was turned in?
Third one that was turned in was regarding the Veteran Resource Center improvements, which that building has not been maintained, so it's in pretty bad shape. It doesn't have the security it needs, and we know it leaks and things of that nature. One of the other things we are looking at and exploring is it possible to have basically satellite offices in the Brookings area
annex?
where the majority of the population is? And is there room to perhaps move some of those veteran services over into that building? I mean, that all has to be looked at yet. So I guess from looking at the best bang for our buck, I think that we should not put the CDBG opportunity towards that existing building.
And I
And
think
instead focus on a bigger project
You're
of
talking
more
the South
need.
County Annex. Don't
Yes.
put it towards that.
Do not put it towards Veteran Center or Veteran Resource Center improvements.
Okay, that makes sense.
because Commissioner, I just want you to be fully informed. I don't know if you went down and toured the real estate down in Brookings that we did. I mean, that's a wonderful building. And
I was there.
That could all tie into if we end up with CCH back and all that stuff. The offer that's possibly open on that building could be an amazing place for our Veterans Service Center, that kind of stuff as well. And we could, sell off the other property. So these are all things that are going to take time to look at. But, as you know, this board is being very proactive to doing that. So.
Yeah, I'm not as convinced on the courthouse. I'm not in disagreement with you at all. As far as crumbling, I think it'll be fine for a while, but I do want to get us on the list. I do want to be very almost aggressive on that. The towers, the county annex system in Brookings, I don't know how or where we're headed as far as prioritizing those today. Well, maybe that's not our intent here, but I think we need to get some more information and see if we can come to agreement on that priority list. Because we have 4 pretty good ones mentioned there.
Commissioner Gold?
I think all of these items need to be put in the strategic plan, and we need to be checking them off one at a time. But my preference would be the courthouse at this time because of what you said about putting money ahead. That's not what the grant's going to be about for towers. So,
Right, and I just want to make sure that when we are eligible to submit that application, we are ready to go, that we're not wasting time. We all, you know, looking at the projects that were submitted and just talking about the courthouse, for example, we know how it ranks with the state. We know that we've got people staying in basements and, you know, earthquake or whatever, the buildings are likely going to collapse on them. We know we've got leaking. We know we're dumping a ton of money into a building that
it's garbage.
really is never going to get better. We're just going to keep putting these Band-Aids on. So I just want to make sure that whatever the board decides, when we are eligible to apply, we can hit go and start working on that.
And Commissioner, another thing I might want to say to you that might, you know, open your thinking up a little bit more on this is,
Like how you put that.
like Ms. Schmelzer just said, you know, we can't apply for grant funds for something that on the IFCOM. You know, if somebody says, well, this tower is still good, so we don't need to worry about this tower for years to come, where we know the courthouse, it's already a 5-year project if we get it approved today. So this is something that I would, you know, I think is more immediate than replacing the towers at this point. And yes, we do need to replace the money that was taken from the road fund, but I don't think we can use grant money to do that.
You make a good point. You're persuading nicely here. If we're able to keep the towers going for a few more years, there may even be technology that will benefit us, and we might go, wow, it's a good thing we waited. The other concern I have, though, is a courthouse, rough estimate, $10 million, plus land, plus, as you mentioned, the 5 years. So, you know, we're not going to get all that funded outside of our county tax base, I'm sure.
No, there's going to be some grants that are going to have to come, but the state's going to have to, which the state is giving a lot of that money to do that. So once they say, yes, you're on the list, which we are, they're willing to, at that point, I think it's 40%, the state.
I can't remember what the
I don't
number
remember the
was.
number
It's been
either.
a while since we looked at that.
But it's, the state's going to pay for a lot of it.
There's
so.
$10 million out of the, I mean, is that even close?
I'm going to say, well, depending on what we decide to put in there, if we want to have a complex that's all one, where the jail, the courtrooms, and we can even put all the county offices into one building, that might end up saving the county a lot of money. We're going to maybe have to go higher than wider, but with the limited amount of land we have for sale in this county, I think it's time Curry County looks at going up rather than out. It's much more beneficial.
Four-story ocean view.
Cost effective for the county.
I also think if we are looking at satellite offices in the Brookings area to bring some of the services where the majority of the population is, the new courthouse will not have to be as big as some courthouses that you see, provided we want to go with that philosophy of having a permanent South County annex, so to speak, for the county.
All things to think about. So do we want to have an order to move forward with what, anything now, or do you
Well,
want to wait?
I don't need an order at this point. I just need a decision. Motion would be fine, so that when we are eligible to apply, we can just start. When we formalize that process at a later date, we'll be coming back with an order.
So, Mr. Chair, I'll move that we direct staff, Director Schmelzer, to move forward on the next community development block grant in an informal way, and start setting the priorities and go through that process. Too long a motion?
You need a clearer direction than that,
Yeah, I'd
correct?
like to know which priority you want me to pursue.
Well, I think we have a general consensus on the courthouse being number one, the county annex in the South Curry area number two, towers number three. Do you even need a second, third?
No, as long as we know right now that we want to pursue with the, begin the planning phase for the courthouse and the jail. And then I will say this, though, from this discussion, I am gathering that towers should be the next big project that we look at.
Yes. Because the annex building, if we can do an annex building down in South County, we can incorporate the veterans services into that building somehow.
So I'd have to put that number 2, excuse me, I interrupted you there, so, I'm sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
Number 2 would be the county annex, because I think if we have a building available, that's not a 3 or 5 year project, that's a 1 or 2 year project. And as you just stated, it will, be very efficient, could save the county a lot of money, less requirement for building land space up here. That doesn't solve the jail problem, but no, I'd put that number 2, and I'll keep my fingers crossed that the towers, as you stated, last a little bit longer, and maybe we're there. We've come a long way since the emergent situation we had a year ago when we approved those road fund reserves.
5G is being done through satellites now, so we may not need towers in 5
Like
more
I say,
years.
fingers crossed.
If that's the route the board wants to go, I just want to add that looking at that South County Annex, we do have options: lease to own, or buy. So that one we might be able to remove pretty quickly off that list. So.
Okay.
And then you're actually doing, forgive me again, but you're actually doing 2 in 1 then, with the veterans and the county annex, because it'll be a variety of offices and services that we could secondary add there. Thank you.
All right.
So do you need some clarification on that motion? The motion is for you to proceed with the grant, with the priorities being the courthouse.
Correct.
Okay. I just wanted to, so I'll second that motion as clarified.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Roll, please.
Commissioner Gold,
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce.
Yes?
Chair Pash.
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
Next, we have Curry County regular business hours. Ms. Schmelzer?
Yes, so the board has discussed a couple times, and we actually had a draft order, I believe, in front of us at one time to discuss regular business hours for county operations, for the county offices. When you come up to the annex doors, for example, it says that our office hours are 8:30 to 5, Monday through Friday. However, there's a couple offices that are closed. Some open at 7:30, some at 8, some at 8:30, some at 9. What we have seen, I know just in the 10 months that I've been here, we do have people coming here outside of some of the individual office hours looking for assistance. So the discussions the board has had in the past, and I concur with, are that we need to have uniform hours for those offices that the public goes to and for those offices that staff relies on, such as maintenance, for example. So the order before you would be to have standard office hours, operating hours of 8:30 to 5, which is what our doors currently say, Monday through Friday. There was some discussion with one of the departments earlier this week about what do other counties do. So I did quick pull together some data for you, and I sent, that was actually added, I believe, in the supplemental packet. But what I did was I looked at basically from the coast over to I-5, all of those counties. And I selected key departments and bigger departments or departments that I think see a higher traffic volume than others. And I compared what those 12 counties do. Are they open Monday through Friday? What are their office hours? What that little study doesn't reflect are several offices during peak times will extend their hours. So they may have standard hours, but they may extend them during certain times like tax season. And then there are also some that, even though their office may be open till 5, they cut off, let's say, recording at 4:30 or something to that effect. But what's before you are those comparisons of what those other counties do between the coast and the I-5 corridor. So, like I said, we've discussed it a couple times. I think, I know for myself, I would like to start the new year, which is coming up pretty quick here, with a clear message to the public. And that would be, what are those office hours? Do we have uniform office hours? And just, if you're not okay with the order in front of you, at least revise it so we can move forward with something.
Commissioner Gold?
I think this is a really important step for 2 reasons. The public needs to be able to have access, and also staff needs access. a lot of times, like recording and so forth, and tax information wouldn't be available, say, on Fridays for staff, and that can be a problem. So both staff and public, I think, need this.
Commissioner Boyce?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Very good work on this. You have Tillamook and Clatsop County, which are almost identical size to Curry County, as well as Jefferson. Jefferson has the same thing, Monday through Friday. I didn't realize that, but that's very good information. It does get back to what we've been committed to for the last 9 or 10 months. How do we better serve the public? The only thing I would add to that, Mr. Chair, is in some of the discussions, there's been some, I think, potential hard feelings that maybe the employees aren't appreciated enough, or maybe this has been, any resistance has been that we have uncommitted employees, and I just wanted, from my perspective, I certainly want to dispel that. You can't have a successful business of any kind without happy employees. I learned that a long time ago. And so I just want our employees to know that they're appreciated, and I think that this is a good movement, that they will, anybody that may have resistance to this will come on board and realize that we are here because the public is our number, and serving them is our number one responsibility. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Do I have a motion?
I move that we approve the standard office hours for all of the county departments from 8:30 to 5,
Monday through?
Monday through Friday. Thank you.
Second that motion, Mr. Chair.
Further discussion?
Just so everyone is aware that the order does say this would become effective that first working Monday in January, which would be January 6th.
Okay.
Roll, please.
Commissioner Gold.
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce.
Aye.
Chair Pash.
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
Next is C, to appoint an interim local public health administrator and interim county register. Mr. Melzer?
Yes, so we moved this over to 11 hire orders. What we're going to have to discuss is with Ben Cannon's resignation as our local public health administrator, we're going to have to discuss who we hire and then take action on that. So if we could do that on a number 11, that would be appreciated.
Okay, I'm sorry, you did mark that.
Yep, that's fine.
Wow. You know what I did is I
Big
marked the wrong number here, that's why. I marked it on D, not C, I'm sorry. So we've already done D. We're moving to E, approving the services of the grant writing firm and preliminary project list for Park. Commissioner Boyce?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We've made some incredible strides in a variety of ways this past 10 months. If you mention, and it should be mentioned and highlighted, because it builds more momentum, in my view, and that's community development. The progress we've made in economic development, certainly planning, building, parks, code enforcement in a very short period of time, to where just a year and a half ago we had one part-time code enforcement, for example, and now we've budgeted for a second and are pursuing that position to be filled now. So certainly different years between you and I, we committed to the public for the promise of setting up county government. And I had a recent Facebook post that as soon as Curry County is managed as well as Coos Curry Electric, we'll really know that we have accomplished and kept those promises, and we're on our way. And I believe that very strongly. So when you do the corporate structure or company structure, there's 4 things that you have to accomplish. As I mentioned, I've employed a lot of people in my day, and number 1 is you have to have, as I said earlier, happy employees at any level, and the ability to work with them and to get them under the team concept and to produce to the very best of their ability. Sometimes that's a big job, sometimes it isn't. People want recognition, people want to know that they are appreciated, and I was in discussing with one other department head, elected official the other day. I said, hey, there's a gap, real or perceived. is between the taxpayers and the public employees, and not just the county level, but the state and the federal as well. Our job is to close that gap. That doesn't mean we accept things from the employees that are not acceptable or suitable. But I'm very proud of the employees we have here. Do we have work to do? You bet. But the second thing is you have to manage well, and I think we have really made some progress with that with this group that we've put together, and that's accounting, and that's outside the financial categories. That is accounting and transparent for everything we do. Number three, we've got to control costs, and that's been a real issue the first 2 years I was commissioner. A lot of money was lost, and we filled those holes in the boat. But there's still one, and the third one, or the fourth one, is just increased revenues. And the three of us sitting up here, I don't think any of us, you never say never, but I don't think any of us have an interest, certainly in the short term, but probably not the long term, in raising property taxes. So the task on us, the burden on us, is to find other sources of revenue. Number 3 and 4, control costs and increase revenue. So the best option we have is through grants, corporate money, certainly foundation money, state level, state and federal level. You know, we're just talking about the court security, the BG grant, community development. There is a lot of funds out there. The one big hole in this 10 months that we've been working on, Director Smelzer and I, and just haven't been able to, we just haven't had the time to really get it done. But about 6 months ago, her and I started working with Stan Foster of Park Resources. Very reputable, very experienced, very easy to work with, in my view. And their services, their administrative fees are very reasonable. There's a lot of opportunities out there, just for lack of a better description, we don't have time to pursue. For the most part, there's no cost to us. There are some exceptions to that, but there's no cost to us except when a grant is awarded. I've already got a lot of correspondence, almost weekly, from Mr. Foster on other programs available. And so what I have here today is I'm looking for preliminary approval in a general sense from the board to hire this company and his staff. And let's see if I can find this here. We were supposed to practice, weren't we? There we go. These are the, and again, this is preliminary to what we could do and would likely bring back to the board, just like we did with the courthouse, the 4 priorities there. You know, we fine-tuned that a little bit. We had some good discussion on that. This is going to take more discussion. As I said in the statement with the agenda routing slip, this is a complex deal. I'm out of my league on this. I mean, I'm learning a lot. But if we could hire this company, and even if it's on an interim basis, then I think we need to do that. The number one project that I think we need to identify and run by the public, run by the board here, and pursue to see if it has legitimate merit would be, this is just a logo is all it is. I give you information on the proposed Curry Firefighting and Emergency Training Center. To date, we have $140,000 in either grants or slash pledges. There's some federal money out there we're working, and I think we're making some very good progress on that.
You've already got $140,000 on that?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. That's primarily through Wild River Coast Alliance,
Right.
the Banded Dunes.
And can I just add
Yes,
to
certainly.
Tyson Krieger from the city, he has also done some initial work on that as far as feasibility studies, that type of work. My understanding is the money he received so far for that part of the project was about $200,000. So if the county was willing to contract with Mr. Foster on this project, you know, what we could do is say, what type of grants are out there? What would it cost to have you write these grants to bring this to the next level? What they need, so they have the feasibility study done. Now what they need is somebody to write the grant to actually secure the property for the project.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. And yes, thanks, Director Smelzer, for mentioning Tyson Krieger, Gold Beach Fire Chief. This has been his project from the very beginning.
Tyson
He's just,
told me,
yeah, he's just been working hard to collect as many partners at all levels. We got this through the Governor's Fire Response Council, and so it's been a slow process, but definitely measured progress forward. So not necessarily in any particular order, but you also saw on the supporting documents from the agenda routing slip the possibility of what we could get in assistance for some of our healthcare needs. And so I'll just read the top two. Again, this is preliminary, but here the primary care and urgent care space in Brookings. And so we'll be working to refine this and bring it back to the board at some point as one of the 4 projects in the likely 400,000 that we could get. We just need help at the grant writing level. And then after that, I think we've put together a team the last 10 months that we can properly administer those grants. That is a legitimate issue the public has, that I think we collectively have, and I think that's a small thing to, maybe not small, but a legitimate thing to be focused on. This is a map of the Cape Blanco Airport. As you know, you have been working, and I've been working at different capacities with the Oregon Department of Aviation. This section right here, this would, we're guessing, and because we haven't had the authorization to move forward in a more precise way. But this is the 65 acres, give or take, right here, the county property, and it's all good level ground. I've walked it before, I believe you have, but it has a lot of brush. It has a lot of small coast pine, and this needs to be developed in a sense of, could we have the county road department, if we could properly fund it through the grant system as part of one of the 4 projects, to clear this land in a really good way. Doesn't mean necessarily take all the trees out. We'd have to do a plan. We'd have to get some different input on this from citizens, departments, but Emergency Management Coordinator Dumeier spent a lot of time walking this property, and I think he's got a very good idea there. That would show the county willing to put in effort and time, which would then tell the state and federal government, hey, we're doing our best to do our part. This needs to be developed, the entire airport. How can you help? We already have a white paper that I presented to the board earlier from aviation specialist John Wilson, and that was about 4 or 5 months ago. We spent quite a bit of time with him. So go ahead.
Commissioner Boyce, just so the public understands, I just want to add to this that we are in a position where Homeland Security is looking at our airport as a possible site for one of their operations. We also are looking through our Emergency Management Department as having we need a location for North County Emergency Operations Center. So that's some of the ideas that could be, that are being proposed for that property, but having that property cleared and leveled would make it more attractive to those, to Homeland Security and those people that are currently looking at us as a potential site for their operations.
Yes, that's a very good point, because there's 3 coastal airports in Oregon that could be developed. This airport would take care of basically of Lane, Reachport, on the coast, Coos, Curry, and Del Norte counties in the case of the worst part of the emergency. And I'm also glad you mentioned that, because our 3 top priorities here, as I see it now, this is just my opinion, are all under the emergency management umbrella. And it's because of the way this county's been hit, especially the South County, starting in 2011 with the tsunami that did tremendous damage to the port, the sinkhole, the fires, the Highway 101 collapse. The list is pretty big, and we know there's more coming. Are we ready? We're more ready than we were a year ago, and we're gaining.
I will say, having worked with airport managers that have improved airports as well, the FAA always wants to see that states and counties are willing to put money into their airports to improve them before they'll step in and spend $1 million on an ILS system. They want to know that, whoever is the managing part of that airport is willing to make the improvements that they're going to request for that. So this would be a step forward.
Mr. Chair, I mentioned John Wilson. The 3 airports, and one's in Tillamook, and I think the other one's in Lane County. I'm drawing a blank there. Doesn't matter. He's put the most interest in this airport without being too committed, but or too excited, but it's give us some additional momentum. Your point that, and I mentioned that a bit ago too, any work that we're willing to do and can do, again, yes, it shows that support, and as Miss Melzer said, hey, doing this job right here makes it more attractive. So this is something again that needs to be developed, and not just maybe not just emergency management, but I think that would be our #1 focus in my.
And for the county itself, for economic development, this airport I think would be huge, because you're going to bring those emergency services people into the county. Those are going to be jobs. That's going to be, different stages being kept at their airport and managed. So this is jobs. This is economic development for this county.
Curry County is sitting in a very good position. EMC Dumeyer is spending time with the Navy, the Coast Guard. We had our Triton exercise up there 2 years ago that was very well attended. So people know, and that, as you know, that airport is incredibly well constructed.
Yes.
Can I just add that I do think that if the board approves Mr. Foster writing a grant to have that site cleared, that we get in the record at some point that the board's intent for that property is purely for public purposes. I think in the past there's been a lot of mistrust in county government that we are doing something for a golf course or something secret up there. So I think we'd want to make it very clear that the improvements we're doing up there with these public dollars is for public benefit and not for a private party.
I'm sorry, Commissioner.
I just have a couple of questions. I'm going to get back to the main thing here. We're looking at park resources, right? And so do you know what their success rate is in writing grants? Are they real successful? What percent of the grants do they actually come up with?
Well, no, they come highly recommended through the City of Brookings, Emeritus City Administrator Gary Melliman. Director Smelzer and I have met with Mr. Foster. He has a staff. I can't sit here and say that all their efforts have been successful. The competition is tough, as you know, especially in rural Oregon. But Mr. Chair, I want to get back to address Director Smelzer's concern. I'm not cutting you off.
That's
Commissioner
okay. I've
Gold.
got several other questions,
Okay.
so they can wait.
I don't want to box us in a canyon or in a corner here that we can't look down the road for economic development. I don't have anything in mind for the future, but if it was just strictly airport for emergency management, and there's other things that fit under the public interest umbrella, I accept and agree. But I don't want to say today that it's only going to be used for non-commercial purposes or something, if I'm hearing that or understanding that correctly.
I think this board would be remiss if we said that, to be honest. I mean, to have the wording in this that we're not doing this because somebody's come in our office and quietly told us that they want to build a golf course up there and we need this airport to help us to develop it, absolutely that language should be made clear that we're not doing any personal favors for anyone to develop this airport. But to make it loud and clear that we are going to do what we're looking to do for public reasons and for public access to this airport, and the gain that the county will get from it should be clear. In the future, should private development come into that airport, an FBO, fuel services for the public, for public airplanes and that kind of stuff, that's only a benefit to the county. But we don't have an intent at this point to clean up this airport. Because, I wouldn't put any restrictions on what can happen, but we just want the public to be made aware at this point. We're not doing this because somebody said they're going to build a golf course and we're going to need that airport.
And the zoning really is restrictive on that property as well. People have to understand that, for instance, the buildings that can be built out there, if I remember offhand, they have to be for government purpose or government-owned. So it's not like, one of the rumors I heard was that this was going to become a casino.
Oh, boy.
First of all, you'd need sewer for a casino. You're not going to be able to put a hotel or something like that on a private septic. So I just want us to be cautious that there are concerns out there. There is some mistrust that we've inherited, and I just want to make sure the public is aware that this is really for the public benefit.
And I think she's making a very good point on it. There is some mistrust, and so that's the last thing I want to do is compromise that.
And the other thing is the FAA, I've dealt with them on this personally, has restricted and tightened their guidelines on what can be on that specific land. I know hangars now, if you build a hangar and the FAA approves the stamp and the footprint on their runway access for a hangar, you can no longer put a workshop in there. I mean, some are grandfathered in, but now if you build a hangar, a new hangar on a property, it is leased or put on that property with the sole intent of a hangar, and if it becomes something else, they can pull the license for it and tear it down.
Has to be for aeronautical purposes.
Okay. Commissioner Lake?
Okay, back to the grant people, because that's our purpose here. I'm understanding that the major thing we're going to be going for is a grant for the airport, correct?
No, for the fire training center.
Training center, sorry. Okay, so usually grant writers charge you a % of whatever success they have. So do you know the % that they would be charging us for the rate?
So when Commissioner Boyce and I met with Mr. Foster, he had a pricing sheet which was confidential, which he didn't want to leave with us, but he did show it to us. And he did not do a percentage, he did a flat fee. And they were not, I was surprised, they were not very high at all. I'm talking $3,000, $5,000. I think the highest grant fee they charged was $9,000. And that was for the federal grants, the bigger grants. So it was a flat fee.
They're more complicated.
Right. He did have, I did go on their website, I saw their clients. We had met with him, I think, for maybe about an hour, 45 minutes or an hour. They had quite a few clients. They have a big portfolio. And like I said, they weren't on a percentage basis, they were a flat fee rate per grant.
Okay, that doesn't bother me. Matching funds, that's something I think we need to be concerned with if we had to do matching funds, or if we could do in-kind work like the leveling off and so forth, that would help.
Right, definitely. I think if the board approves working with Park Resources on select projects, I think that we have to be very clear to Mr. Foster that we don't have money for matching funds.
He already knows that.
We can, like you said, have him pursue grants that take advantage of in-kind services, but if they're looking for financial matches, we just don't have it.
Okay. And then my last concern is our ability or lack thereof to administer the grants. We've shown in the past that we've had some problems, so.
We did talk with Mr. Foster about that because one of my concerns was hiring a grant writer that would get you through step A and not walk you through step B. And he did say that they walk us through the entire process of a project from start to finish. For example, if you're looking at the courthouse, they would walk you through helping get the grant for the feasibility study, and then they'd walk you through the grant for the next one. They kind of walk you through the process of what you need. Now, do they actually administer the grant? They are applying for the funding. They are securing the funding, and they're making sure that we are following through with the funding and the administrative work, but we would be responsible for the actual meeting the obligations of that grant.
Right, and in the past, because there's a high turnover of personnel in the county, some of this has slipped through the cracks. For instance, the first Head Start grant, that was a big problem on that, so.
Right, and I guess that's one thing I do want to clarify right now, and I've had a discussion with Commissioner Boyce about this, is I personally prefer this be done with consultants and staff, And I do not like seeing commissioners actually take on grant projects. And nobody has proposed that here, and that's why it's a good idea to go through somebody like Park. Because what happens when you have a commissioner take on a grant project, one is they leave and then the
It's just
project is
dumped.
done. It's dumped, and you don't have it. And the other thing we found is sometimes commissioners take all the documentation with them, so we don't have the records that we need. So any grant administration has to be done through staff and not through a commissioner. And, I think all three commissioners agree with that. We've had those conversations before, that it really needs to be done through staff.
Okay, and I know federal grants are very, very restrictive in the way they are administered, and so we need to be very careful how we administer
And
these
that's one of
grants.
the nice things with working with somebody like Park is federal grants are very time-consuming to write, and they have a lot of strings attached to them.
Mhm.
So I have a quick couple of questions. So you mentioned the fees already. The fees on this are only if they get the grant, correct?
My understanding was we pay that flat fee regardless of what we get the grant. Now, Commissioner Boyce, you said that we pay if we get it. So unless you've heard something different, but my understanding from Mr. Foster was because they don't do a percentage, they do a flat rate, that you're paying that flat rate whether you get the grant or not. Usually.
Do you know that to be anything different than that, Commissioner?
The sense I had is they absolutely would work with a small county. And if we give them that opportunity, I mean, it's an ongoing agreement. It's not even a strict
Because
contract. It's basically saying, we can end at any time. Here's what I want to offer, if I may. We have lost a lot of grants because we have not been organized. We played catch-up for the previous
Absolutely.
2 years. And so what is our next option? What is our other option? As you heard me say earlier in this presentation, we have the staff now to administer these. And I can see no reason not to quickly vote on this and try this company, even if you prefer, Mr. Chair, the board prefers to have a test period or a I'm giving you the best information I can that this is a very wise way for us to go, and it's late, better late than never.
So let me say this. I have question about, I've looked up the company. I haven't gone into them. I just did a brief Google search on them. If they're going to charge a flat fee, I've had a lot of bad luck with that in my business life, because once somebody charges you a fee to do something, they produce what they think was necessary for them to do that. And then they walk away, hands are clean. Where if they charge a percentage of the grant, then that gives them a reason to stay in the fight, especially once the bulk of the work is done. It gives them a good reason to stay in the fight. My other problem that I have with this company, and it's not a problem, I would like a little bit of latitude, maybe give me a few days to look at this. I don't know enough about the company. When I went on their website, the list of people that they currently deal with is huge. And what I'm wondering is if there's limited grant funding in certain areas for things, and I'll be the first one to admit I don't know a lot about grants, okay? But if there's limited funding for certain areas, and there's 10 cities or 10 counties that they are already customers of applying
Well, that
for
should
those.
tell us something.
Can I finish, please? I just want to
Sorry.
say, if there's 10 people or 10 counties applying for those same grant dollars, where do they say, gosh, Curry's just starting with us. I've been a friend with Josephine County for 10 years. And, I mean, to personalize it, come on, John, from this company. We've been dealing with it for 10 years. You gotta push that grant our way. And I don't know if there is a way to direct grants. I'm not saying that there is. This is a question I have, and all I'm asking is, let me finish. All I'm asking is, give me a few days. I'd like to look a little bit more into the company. Can we bring this back as an action item for the next meeting? That's all I'm asking for. I'm not going to say I don't want to do this. I'm just saying I want to think about it.
If I may, Mr. Chair.
He had his hand up first.
Do you really think there's an unreasonable risk of us getting stiffed on a company that has very good background. I mean, what, and then I'll ask you a second question for this board. What's our other option? We have an USDA $400,000 here that we've got to act now. Bottom line.
I'm not,
So I don't want to delay it, so I'm going to make a motion when you're ready, sir.
Can I just clarify something? I'm sorry, Commissioner.
That's okay.
So, Court, just to be clear, what you're asking Mr. Foster to do is apply for the current USDA funds for these projects.
That's correct.
Okay, so
For now.
Okay, so
We'll build.
let me step back a little bit.
Okay.
There's currently USDA funding available for counties hit by disasters. So what you're looking to do is have Mr. Foster take advantage of that grant opportunity to fund these projects.
Well said.
Commissioner Gold?
Okay, when I was listening to you, what you were saying is there's a potential conflict of interest because of,
Oh,
I'm just trying to solidify this, a conflict of interest due to Mr. Foster applying for the same grant for different counties.
correct.
Okay.
With the USDA funding...
Let me just stop. After what you just clarified on that, I am 100% on board, Commissioner, for looking at using them for this USDA grant because that money is already parked here for us.
And it'll go,
All I'm trying to say is I want to know more about this company before we say you have carte blanche to write all of our grants. If you'd like to start with this particular grant as you just described it, I'm much more applicable to that.
and the request,
I'd agree with that.
the request, Mr. Chair, was on a general direction, subject to board approval, periodically. I think that was well stated, starting here, as Director Smelser just well qualified and communicated, clarified.
And all I'm asking is, let's start there. You would have my support on that. All I'm saying is let's start there, but I would perhaps like to look at this company a little better for future and perhaps meet with this person and let him pitch me as well. I mean, I'd like to learn more about what their approach is, how they're going to do it, because I 100% agree with you. If we have grant application processes that we can take advantage of, would be horribly remiss to the citizens of this county if we don't make every attempt we can. And I appreciate the work you've done on this. I don't want to hire a company blind without knowing who they are. So to move forward on this particular grant, you would have my support.
Can I recommend the board consider a motion to have Mr. Foster give us an estimate of what it would cost to apply for the USDA funds for these projects that that Commissioner Boyce has proposed today?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would like to support that. I'm just not sure of the timeline. And Mr. Chair, also there is, of the $150 million that's available in the United States for various disaster-related grant opportunities, we need to be in a position. I'm not disagreeing with what you just said and what your position is. Might be the best way to go. But we have to be able to compete for those other grants. Mm-hmm. And I believe, and I'm going to keep saying it because I know it's factual and important for the public to know, no county's been hit harder when you look at an 8-year period. So if we delay this, I think we delay the opportunity to miss a lot of funding, and I want to have fun in competing, and I think this company's the way to go. And so are you ready for...
Can I ask one more question on this? Because, you know, I agree with you 100% on this. I mean, I know right now through NACO, there's USDA funding, there's veterans funding, there's a lot of grant funding that's available right now that I forward to Ms. Schmelzer and Ms. Madison. Sorry. But what I'm asking, what I'd like to know is, have they given us a ballpark price of what this is going to cost to apply for this grant? Or could they just hand us a bill for $25,000 and say, here?
Okay, I'm going to answer that if I may.
Sure.
What do commissioners do, including me? We forward it to Director Smelzer and Economic Development Coordinator Madison. They don't have time. She can write the grants. If that's all she had to do, we would be. If we had another Julie Smelzer, we'd really be in good business. Okay? What I'm concerned about is is just simply understanding the risk of this company having conflict of interest and not having the integrity. I mean, we had I'm late getting this to us, to the board. I'm very late getting this to us. So any delay, I think, is ill-advised. That's
I'm
my
not
opinion.
asking for a delay, sir.
Okay.
What I'm asking for is this, to allow them for this first grant, like you said, mentioned earlier, a probationary period, to allow them to apply for this first grant. But don't you want to know what they're going to charge us for it before?
Well, yes, and that's in the general routing slip can we just proceed in a general way, come back to the board?
Absolutely.
I would like to give them an attitude from this board that we would love to have your services. We're going to start here, back to your recommendation on the motion. I'd like to add to that, we are very glad that they want to work with Curry County.
Absolutely.
And we'll get back to them later. Going beyond, but this project list of 4 here still needs to have board approval at some point. It's going to take a lot of work. And it may change. There'll be additions, there'll be deletions, I presume. So I'll make that motion. Do we need it clarified?
I'd like to see it clarified. Yes.
Okay. We want to direct staff. No, we're not going to direct staff. We're just going to make a motion to accept park services on the interim basis of the first USDA grants, and we want to send them a memo of sorts that their willingness to work with us is much appreciated. The third thing would be we want to know the general basis of the costs involved to pursue these USDA grants.
Yes.
And the fourth...
And that's for the fire center.
Well, there's one I didn't show you here, but again, I don't want to get too into detail because I think it's going to change. This is just one commissioner's opinion, working with a lot of different people.
But just to apply for the grant in general is what you're saying, for this USDA grant. That's
Yes.
your motion, not to specify an actual area that it's going to be placed into.
Okay.
I think we do need to have it as in a general, those three that specifically relate to emergency management. The fire training center.
Okay, I'm okay with those three.
I'm okay with those three as well.
Okay.
So,
That's a complicated...
so the motion would be to get an estimate from Park Resources, what it would cost to apply for USDA funds for the 3 emergency management projects that were identified.
We probably need to add to that USDA disaster funds because of the urgency. Would you agree with that?
I would.
Okay.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Further discussion? Roll, please.
Commissioner Gold,
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce,
Yes.
Chair Pash.
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
We're going to take a 10-minute recess. We'll be back at 10:30. Sorry, we're a couple minutes late getting back. It is 10:35 on November 6th, 2019, and we are up to our director's report. Get a cup of coffee and a donut.
Get a cup of coffee and a donut. It's going to be a long report. So, I'm going to start talking about transient lodging tax. As you know, that went into effect this year. We're currently in our first quarter of collecting that tax, and part of that ordinance associated with that tax was that we have a promotions committee. They're going to have their first meeting tonight. Some of the things that staff has found, though, in working on collecting the tax so far is we've run into a couple little concerns that we have that we're going to be bringing back to the board, but I just want to give you a quick highlight. One is that the ordinance doesn't account for how to interact with intermediaries such as Airbnb. So we are going to either have to have an individual contract with Airbnb or amend our ordinance to address how we interact with them. The other thing is the tax applies to the unincorporated areas, but I believe everybody will benefit from the promotions and the work that is being accomplished with those revenues. So I think the board will need to go back and look at, should the tax also apply to the incorporated areas? For example, should there be like a 2% tax on top of incorporated taxes to help cover the costs of promotions instead of the unincorporated areas taking the full burden of that promotion cost?
Can I stop you real quick? And I have a
Yes.
quick question on the Airbnb you said.
Yeah.
Is that the only one we would have to look to contract with? Or because I know there's like Visbo and there's other organizations. Would we have to contract with all of them, or would they cover everything?
It depends how they're set up. Some of them are set up that we can interact with them right now. And then the other thing is Airbnb actually encompasses several of those companies. So you're really looking at one master company that is overseeing several of them.
Thank you.
The other part of that we are going to ask the board to revisit is the amount that is saved for admin. So at the current time, the way that ordinance is set up, 5% of 30% goes towards staff. So at the current time, this first year, 70% of all the revenues will go to the fair. And then of the remaining 30%, 5% of that is to go for staffing. And when the ordinance was created, my understanding is, and I wasn't here at that time, but my understanding from talking to people was people thought that the state would collect that tax, so our administrative costs would be very low. The state doesn't collect a transient lodging tax. So our admin costs are actually very high on this program. And that is not something that the group that worked on that first draft or that ordinance knew or was aware of. So I think we do need to revisit that to cover our expenses on that program.
So this is the first time we're doing this. Once we get the database and so forth, is it going to be much easier and less costly to administer?
Well, we still have, so right now there's a huge expense that we're not going to be able to recoup, and that is finding out who all the lodging establishments are, sending them the information. But you still have to have that person who is collecting those fees, making sure those fees are paid, are submitted quarterly, and somebody is policing that. So as time goes on, your costs will go down. But I think we really need to take a serious look at this as time comes, probably in January, after we get our first, or that'd be February. So after we get our first quarter's revenues, I think we need to seriously look at what is coming in and what is really fair. Because I don't think we need another program that is costing the county money to run.
Oh, I agree.
So moving on, we are in the midst of our strategic planning process, and the Moss Adams has met with the board. They've met with planning director, with the management team and the elected officials. They have done a survey of all employees, and they did a survey of management, they did a survey of all employees, and now they're resurveying to get more input on the vision and goals. Next week, on November 12th, they're actually going to have an open house with the public to share with what they've found so far and to get community feedback. Following that open house on November 12th, after that date, they'll be releasing a survey that goes out to the entire public as well. So I'm working with them on those open house details and how we get the word out about that survey. We met with the water master last week or the week before, and we discussed the need for to have a presence here, basically. And Jake and I, not the water master, I'm sorry, the regional master representative, Jake Johnstone, and we've been going back and forth. And he has proposed two days a week over in Curry, and then one of their people would be 2 days a week up in Coquille. And it would be like the first and third week of every month, they'd be here 2 days, and the other person that would be in the Coquille office would be alternating. So it'd be like the second and fourth weeks, they'd be in there 2 days a week. So we're working on that schedule and where those office hours can be held, and then we'll be having an announcement on that once that's formalized. This week we began some software demonstrations on how to address inefficiencies. As you know, in the past we've had some of the auditor comments were that we have some areas to improve upon. Some of the early results on our strategic planning processes with Moss Adams has really stressed the need for efficiencies. So we had some demonstrations or some meetings with some software companies that can look to improve our budgeting and AP processes and then make it easier to pull reports and to share that data with department heads. That software also looks at ways to improve keeping track of employees' time and that reporting that is involved in that time, how to make it a pretty seamless process. So we're pursuing those, getting more data and more information on those companies, the costs involved, the cost savings that could potentially be seen with those, and we'll be bringing that back to the full board in the near future. This year, as you know, the county always does a State of the County address. That's usually the chair that does that, and they do that in January. Historically, it's been a letter read at the first board meeting or second board meeting, and then that letter goes on the website. I've had conversations with the chair, and what we're looking at this year is an actual film that can be shared on social media and presented to the public in different public settings that would highlight the work that we've done this year and the efficiencies that we've seen, as well as some of the challenges that we've come into. So we're going to be spending the next, Miranda in our office will be working on some of that film for the next 2 months, and we'll actually be having a formal presentation here at the board meeting, of course. The chair will present that, but then also we'll be doing that in some public open house type settings as well.
And I would also like to offer that, and I know I haven't spoken to Ms. Schmelzer about that, but the other commissioners to have a video segment in that as well. Maybe, you know, all of us have a limited time segment, but it would be nice if something that each commissioner here could relate to the public in a personal setting like that, a video that of something they've worked on, that they've seen a vision in the county, that you can relay that to the public. So I would like to offer that. The other two commissioners as well would be given some time on that video as well. So.
And thank you. I have had that discussion with Miranda about also covering each department head, so the public gets to know the commissioners and the staff a little better as well.
Personal touch, yeah.
A personal touch. As I mentioned earlier, the special district open house or meeting that we're going to have is December 9th. One thing that we're working on is an intergovernmental agreement to present or propose to the cities for code enforcement services. When it comes to code enforcement, one of the other things that I will be looking at and bringing forward for discussion is currently we provide animal control services, code enforcement services in the cities at no charge. So the county is bearing the full dog patrol, dog catcher responsibilities in the cities. And the cities aren't paying anything for that service. We need to either approach them and ask them if they'd like to pay part of that service, or we need to change our ordinance to indicate that it's only effective in the unincorporated areas. We have, yes?
Do you have a plan on when we might approach that, or thoughts?
I am looking to have all of this kind of reined in by the first of the year, where we either have discussed it or we have something actually proposed that we can review.
And that's not only code enforcement, that's building inspection, all that kind of stuff.
Building inspection services as well. One thing we're looking at is we're looking at the trends for getting the word out about what we do here, and a lot of that is on social media. So I'm throwing around the idea of, do we need to be showing things on cable channel, or should we be looking at other avenues as well? Social media, podcasts, different avenues for that. So I'll be bringing that back to the board as well. One thing that I sent out a first draft this week was looking at a possible ordinance for vacant properties where, let's say you own a home but you're not here, or you have vacant property and you're not here. Should there be a registration of those properties? And should that registration fee be going to code enforcement and law enforcement? Code enforcement spends a lot of their time on these vacant properties where you have squatters or problems. Law enforcement is actually spending a lot of time patrolling some of these areas. You know, we tend to see, like I said, squatters or maybe some drug problems or fire problems associated with some of these. And is there a way to recoup some of those costs? So that ordinance will be hopefully coming forward to you soon. That there is a first draft on that already that is being reviewed. We have a homeless encampment situation on some property down in Harbor. It's on county property, and one of the ways to resolve the issue would be for the county to maintain their vegetation on that property, basically trim up the trees so it's less inviting for homeless to be there. They've currently have a lot of their possessions on that property. So I will be bringing forward an order to the board. I know it is within my jurisdiction to order the property maintained, the vegetation maintained on that, but that property is going to have, it's going to be a pretty public and vocal, I think we're going to hear a lot from the public on, should we cut the trees, should we not cut the trees, that type of thing. So I will be bringing that to the board with an order for the board to decide, do we allocate road funds to go out there, or pay somebody to go out there and trim up the brush to address some of the homeless encampment problems that we're seeing on that property.
Where is that property exactly?
It's in Harbor. I don't have the exact address. Mr. Fortman was sharing it with me that there's a lot of issues on the property.
So I understand that we can put up anywhere in this county that we choose on our own property. No overnight, or the property cannot be, no one can be on this property from 6 p.m. This property closes until 8 a.m. All people must be off the property. We can hang those kind of signs on this property, and then law enforcement can go in and take over.
And that would be a question for Council Huddle. I'm not sure with that.
No overnight
circuit court
camping, all that kind of stuff.
How about no trespassing? Wouldn't that cover it all?
That's up to Council Huddle.
You're talking about private property?
Public property.
County-owned property.
Oh, county-owned property, right. Yes, you can, the requirement is if you're going to remove a homeless person or their property from a homeless camp, you have to post at least 24 hours notice in advance in both English and Spanish. So yes, we could put those anywhere we anticipate a homeless camp to be, which, whatever property we want, and then we can enforce under that provision.
That's
and then
easy.
Trespassing is just a separate thing that doesn't really need posting, but it doesn't hurt.
I would just say either no trespassing or no overnight whatever, and to clean up the property as well, absolutely.
Yeah, what we found is, so we've been looking at what the City of Gold Beach did and Brookings, and by cleaning up the vegetation, that it really has discouraged some of the activity, which then of course means you don't have to have law enforcement going out there. So I think we need to look at both of those.
Yeah, so
we'll be
let's have
bringing
road
that forward.
department hang some signs there too.
Okay. We'll bring that forward for discussion and an order. Okay.
Say, start cleaning brush, fire-wise, in the state, by the way, they do that on their property. No overnight camping.
Right.
Just an update on the Elk River campgrounds. As you know, Bob Hemus from the Forest Service was working with us to secure the permits to take over those campgrounds. Mr. Hemus has passed away, and the Forest Service has pretty much kind of put a little halt on that. So that process is going much slower. We don't even know when they plan on working on a permit for us. So that project is pretty much on hold at the current time until further notice. Beach survey, the Jeremy Dumeyer, the emergency management coordinator, has notified me that the Navy is here this coming week, and they will be doing a beach survey to see which of our surveys can accommodate their watercraft in the event of an emergency where they could be landing. And they basically need, I forget what it is, I think it has to have like a, don't quote me on this, I want to say like a 200-foot deep beach for them or something to that effect. So anyway, they'll be here doing that research next week and visiting all of our beaches. So if you see some activity, that's what that is about. Senator Merkley is proposing a bill that will help, if successful, will help with some of the concerns we've had. We've discussed in the past the cost of inmates' Medicare costs us. So for their medical care or their psychiatric care, it really puts a burden on county budgets. I think this past year, it was over $100,000 that we spent on that care for our inmates. I've talked with All Care about my concerns on that, and All Care has been working with Merkley on a bill that, if successful, will help address some of those concerns. It would allow inmates to retain their coverage when they're in jail. So I will be bringing a resolution forward. I tried having it done for today's meeting. I have the first draft done, but I wanted to add some more input from Joel Hensley, and he did give me that information, so I'll be bringing a resolution of support to our next meeting on that. And believe it or not, that's it.
Wow. Before lunch. Commissioner Gold?
I'll make mine short, sweet, and to the point. I just attended a Waste and Recycling Committee meeting, and interestingly enough, our contamination rate for our recycle is between 1.5 and 2%. The state average is between 15 and 25%.
Wow.
So we're like, hey, number one. The recycling program is expanding to the Pistol River area and more of the Carpenterville area. Also, CTR has a new app, and part of that app will be able to remind people when to take their trash out, as well as to remind them about, you know, what's recyclable, what's not. Also, they had put a moratorium on people being able to take their old oil to be recycled. Now, it's going to be accepted for free. Also, interestingly enough, shredded paper is not recyclable, so they wanted that out. I also had a high school principals meeting, and I also had an elementary school principals meeting, and two of the main weaknesses they said, both groups, was lack of housing for new teachers and so forth coming into the area, and also a lack of good mental health people to help the kids with their mental health problems. So that pretty well covers it.
All righty. I have a few things. First of all, I would like to, on a personal note, say thanks to the community for everyone that came out to Cornerstone Ranch and used the facility there for last week. We had about 70 kids a couple of weeks ago, and we had a green turtle in a turtle outfit that was pretty cool looking. I have video and pictures if anyone in the county would like to see Ms. Schmelzer at her all-time best. And if she ever runs for public office, I will use that video. I would like to make a couple of comments on some negative things. Timesheets in the county, I think we've gotten a little bit lax in turning in our timesheets properly and making sure that they're signed properly, that HR has a proper signature on those timesheets to be able to move forward with payroll. I don't know if we need a direction from staff on this or from Ms. Schmelzer. Do we need an order on this, or just reiterate to everyone that all department heads' timesheets are turned into you, not signed off on their own, or not signed and just given to HR to be set out for pay, that everyone, not all the employees, but the managers of their respective departments, all those timesheets go through Ms. Schmelzer. The software program that we saw the other day, to me, wow. I don't know much about corporate software for accounting services. I don't know much about government software. But watching 3 different presentations the other day, there was the one particular software program I saw, which I believe was the second one, was it's basically taking our minds out of the clouds and putting them focused on where they need to be by using the cloud. Now, how ironic is that? But anyway, this I would like to look forward to present to the rest of this board some ideas on the software programs. But I've always heard Cassell is a good program, and I'm not knocking Cassell, but the second program that I saw, I was watching our HR, Sina and Miss Swift in the meetings, constantly watching their heads shaking, their heads yes, as they saw different parts of the programs. And I'm not saying that they endorse them or not, I was just seeing from an outsider sitting back watching, eyebrows raised, a lot of positive body action on that. So it was kind of a verification to me, because I was very, very impressed with what I saw. And the money savings that can be saved just on the credit card program alone will probably pay for the annual fees of the software program, much less the countless hours of HR, the way their payroll is done, the cross-checking and back-checking that the program shows, and I don't even know what I'm talking about. And it impressed me, so I can imagine somebody that really knows what they're doing, how impressed they may be. I'd like to also mention that we've got to stop some of this bickering and crybaby stuff in this county with the employees. I have people come in my office every week. I get phone calls every week from employees in the county that are just, we've got a lot of important stuff to do in this county, folks. Because somebody parked in your space, or they didn't answer their phone when you called, or it's not a commissioner's job to worry about these things. It's not Director Schmelzer's job to sit and worry about all these little tiny things. Go to your department head about it. Go to your pastor about it. I don't know, but it's not our job to be angry that somebody parked in your car space, or you don't like the way somebody raised their eyebrows at you this morning. It's just getting old, and I hope we can be grown-ups and adults here and respect each other with the way we talk to people, and respect each other for who they are, the amount of time that they've been here or not, and have a little latitude with that process. I would like to also mention the Marine Corps Ball is this weekend. It's down at the Elks Club in Brookings on Saturday evening. For anyone that's involved in the military, you can contact Michael Cooper. Yep. Mr. Cooper, 541-469-0295. And it's the Marine Corps Ball, but it's all services, all military is invited. Private citizens are invited. If you would like to have a really nice evening out on November 9th, 5 p.m., it's cocktails, it's a cash bar, but they're having top sirloin roast, chicken cordon bleu, all kinds of, they're going to have live music for the evening, everything. It's $25 a person. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of military people that have got a lot of stories to tell, and some jokes as well. So I think you'll find it a great evening, and it's a great way to contribute to the military in this county and keeping the detachment strong and healthy. So it might be something you'd enjoy doing. And there was something else I had, and I don't remember it correct. Oh, one more thing I want to mention on the special districts. I had a meeting with Mr. Milliman, as Commissioner Boyce mentioned earlier, Emeritus, from Brookings, and Connie Hunter came up, and a few others. We've spoken about the special districts, and we are going to be having a meeting in the next couple of weeks about all the special districts, and just looking at each district and the standing in the county, and an approach we can come up with on that. So I will report back to the board on that after it happens, and then we're also going to have a special districts meeting on the 9th of December. So perhaps we can tie that all together for the rest of the board to get fully informed on what we're looking at, and then perhaps move forward with another plan on that. That's all I have. You're up, Commissioner Boyce.
Thank you. You know, a couple months ago, we passed the Housing Emergency Declaration. There's some good movement coming from that on a housing coordinator that we've all discussed, and I think we're going to ultimately be joining forces with Coos County. I don't have a specific report to give the board yet, but I am optimistic and feel very good about that. We have Greg Wolf from AOC, the Oregon Housing and Community Services Program, and Economic Development Coordinator Madison listed in on a conference call with me the other day, and how we might be able to get some funds there in addition to Coos County. So I have something to report later on that, but I think we're headed in a good direction. When we had that declaration, I communicated to the board the top 3 issues that I have is housing, sudden oak death, and the fire danger. And the last couple of months, that's evolved with me personally to where I want to report to the board that of those 3, number 1 is a fire risk that Curry County has. And so I did, if you just take an area like Wells Head, underprotected or not protected at all, it is a high risk. And we have a wonderful group of volunteers in Curry County, 15 different departments, and they all have boards. But we have a Curry County Fire Defense Fund that I've spent a lot of time in, obviously, and that incorporates Coos Forest Protective, Oregon Department of Forestry, the connection there, and on occasion the Forest Service shows up. Let's see if I can get this to rotate, Mr. Chair. I've tried to get this straightened out, but I think we're there. So the point is this: we have 15 different fire departments in Curry County, which includes Gold Beach, Brookings, and Port Orford. What I'm proposing and working with different people, especially the Fire Defense Board, we meet once a month up in the CFPA office, that we have eventually have a north, a central, and a south county battalion is what the proper fire term is. And that's so that we can just better organize, better support, show appreciation, and we need to recruit. We are short of firefighters in our county. They're not paid. As you know, Mr. Chair, at times they even have to pay for their own training if they take off for 10 days or so for the training requirements. This is a great bunch of people, but we also are very fortunate to have in all these departments good chiefs, but they're spread real thin. And so my vision, my outlook is to bring these under 3 different battalions, not so much a county fire department, although in working with Cal Orr, Joe Gregorio, he's had a lot of background experience in Del Norte County, and it's basically under one roof. It improves their firefighting capacity. Sometimes these small rural fire departments are the first ones to the fire, which might prevent it from going into a major forest fire. You heard me mention a minute ago Wells Head. That's something last 2 years that I've been determined to get their own fire department. I just have made honestly very little progress just in the reality of day-to-day requirements. But I'm determined. Some of these other people understand. In fact, one of the chiefs mentioned the other day, to have a fire at Wells Head might be quicker to get the Puss River Fire Department than it would be Cape Farello or Brookings. Just because of the location and the distance and that barrier or potential barrier. So again, my number 1 issue is the risk level that this county has. I know it's easy to point to California and say, wow, look what happened there. But when you simply do an analysis, an assessment on the amount of ground fuel that we have compared to California in a given acre, any measurement you want to make, the forest, all you got to do is look east. And so are we prepared? We're better prepared than we were 2 years ago. No question about it. All the mutual agreements that we have, the preparation, but me personally, I'll never be happy until there's no risk. And so that's going to take a lot of work, but I think there's a lot of wonderful people that are willing to take on that challenge. It's all about fire awareness, prevention, response, suppression, and for us, it's been recovery, as you know. So one of the projects that I outlined or intended to outline for the board today was part of the USDA disaster grants to fund maybe $100,000, have it in some sort of a trust or a foundation or whatever. So when one of these departments, or eventually if it becomes a north, central, and south battalion, that if the folks at 6s say, hey, I got 2 guys I need to get to training, or I've got a tender that needs updated, then they can come to this fire defense board that I've gotten to know very well and have tremendous respect and appreciation for, they could come to that board and hopefully ask for approval. Not unlike our TLT tax, where everybody gets a chance to put in a bid for money that's available. The whole basis of this, of course, is to how can we improve our capability and our capacity to fight fire, and to, again, it's all about public awareness and starting there, and that goes way beyond the FireWise program. So I could spend a lot of time on that, but I
Can I
think
ask one question?
Certainly.
If you don't mind. Have you spoken with some of these other fire departments? How, if you have, how open are they to having a north, central, and south?
It would be pretty easy to offend. Just take any one of the small groups and say we need to. We're here to help, and we want to combine and make your job easier. Again, back to recruitment. There could be some hard feelings. Certainly haven't had that yet. To answer your question, the CFPA folks are following it very closely, and they, again, through the mutual agreements, they are very much involved in how to fine-tune this. I mentioned Gregorio, Del Norte County, and his connection with Curry and Del Norte County. Tyson Krieger is, he has a little bit of a personal burden there for any one of the Central Curry, certainly Cedar Valley. In North County, it's the Elk River's part of the Port Orford City Fire Department, and then you have the Sixes and you have Langless. But they could all use assistance and support and certainly encouragement. So, yeah, we're on the beginning basis of this. I think people will come on board.
I could see a lot of gain for the smaller fire departments if they joined into a larger group, how that could help them, because funding could be directed differently, and it would also deal with some of the district issues that we have.
And if we can pull Oregon Department of
That might
Forestry,
be really
Oregon Department of Forestry into that equation, there will be some extra funding there, and it'll be, again, a mutual dependent coexistence, which what I and some of the other chiefs are looking for there.
That could be a win-win for everyone.
Bring the level down, and Agnes is incredible. I mean, all their firefighters are an average age of about 60. I mentioned Wells Head. There are others that keep me up at night, and it has to do with the amount of fuel we have on the ground here. We have dense, gorgeous forests, and the downside of that is, responsibility to understand and clean the forest floor. It's that simple, but it takes a lot of work and time. I told you a couple meetings ago, I'm watching the offshore energy opportunities or promotion that is really catching on in California. Oregon is behind a little bit. The European countries of Denmark, France, Germany, England, Portugal, they are 20 years ahead of us, and they have overcome some legitimate environmental concerns. I'm telling, in a fun way, telling people, hey, I'm an expert on wind in the south coast of Oregon, so not really, but we have the best winds from Langless to basically the little community of Klamath, Northern California, compared to anywhere on the west coast of the United States. I'm not saying I support offshore energy, but I think it's in the best interest of the citizens of Curry County that I learn all that I possibly can, keep this board well informed, and it is, they're calling it marine renewable resource energy, and so I'm excited to learn all I can and keep the public informed, the board informed. And is it a huge answer? If you look at the European models, if you look at the time and effort that California's putting into it right now, it would seem justified to do serious evaluation. So that's what I have there. Let me see. I've been asked to help with the Veterans Blood Drive, and I want to take on that project, and I hope I can have something to report back to the board on that. If it's something beyond just the Red Cross routine, times that they come and have blood. I'm hearing from a couple different veterans that there is a shortage of blood available, and it might be something that I can put some effort in and contribute to and hopefully make a difference. And I'm going to conclude with Council Heller's report, the work he did with the city of Brookings on them taking charge and waiving their SED hookup fees. So I just want to say a shout out to Brookings, and as part of us bringing these communities together, and I know you're working on the Council of Governments, and that has really good potential for this county and the citizens. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
All right, at this time, this meeting is going to go into recess, and we are going to go into executive session per 192660, employment of an agent, 192660-2F, information exempt, and 192660H for possible litigation. So we are going to recess at the end of executive session. We will come back into session. What you said yesterday, I asked you if you would take me to lunch, and you said yes. Yes, sir. All right, we are back in from executive session. The board and staff are to proceed as directed from that session. And we have one more order of business. Ms. Schmelzer?
So number 11 is a hire order, and it is the order that was provided in your packet. It is basically to appoint me as your interim local public health administrator and interim county registrar.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
I'll second that.
Further discussion? Roll, please.
Mr. Gold.
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce.
Yes.
Chair Pash.
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
With nothing further, this meeting is adjourned.